Hello, welcome to the Birdwatching channel. I'm your host, Sharon Sorensen, here to talk about pileated woodpeckers. Oh, what awesome birds they are. In fact, Jeffrey Gordon, president of the American Birding Association, calls the pileated woodpecker, quote, a punk rock pterodactyl. So, right up front though, is this snazzy dinosaur properly called pileated or pileated? The dictionary allows both, and different pronunciations dominate depending on your geographic region. I made my choice to pronounce it pileated for two reasons. And first, by considering the name's origin. The bird is named for its red cap called a pileus, which is a pointed brimless cap worn by ancient Greeks and Romans. So given its pileus, I think, thus, pileated woodpecker. Second, the word divided into syllables reads P-I-L-E-A-T-E-D. Since that first syllable ends with a vowel, according to the rules of phonics, it should be pronounced as a long I, so pie, and thus pileated. But the bottom line, you know what? That bird doesn't care what you call it. Make your choice, lighten up, it's not worth an argument. So, pileated or pileated, this woodpecker ranks up there among the most awesome of the awesome. Besides calling it a punk rock pterodactyl, Jeffrey Gordon attached a few other picturesque labels to this magnificent bird, like showstopper and fireworks with feathers. I like that. Fireworks with feathers. That's good. So, while he was considering what really makes the pileated so special, Gordon also speculates that maybe it's the geometry and the weaponry, the acute angles, and the sharp points jutting everywhere, the chisel bill, and don't forget the razor talons. Maybe, he goes on, it's the arresting, elegant yet shocking coal black, gleaming white, and red, red, red color scheme. Maybe, Gordon says, maybe it's the size. That's in the mix too. This bird is big, Gordon makes the point, and I tend to think of this bird as the fictional woody woodpecker of the real world. And nothing says big like seeing the pileated next to a white-breasted nuthatch, or next to a hairy woodpecker, or next to a downy woodpecker. Here a young male downy, its red cap on the top of its head, alongside a young female pileated, its bronzy primary showing its youth. Indeed, the pileated, about the size of a crow, stretches 16 to 19 inches from tip of beak to tip of tail, with a wingspan of 26 to 29.5 inches. That's longer than my arm from shoulder to fingertips. So, punk rock pterodactyl, fireworks with feathers, woody woodpecker of the real world, they are our biggest woodpecker. Stunning birds that they are, let's take a look at what makes them tick. They're North American birds, pure and simple, North American. They're non-migratory, confining their range to the eastern half of the U.S. and along the U.S.-Canadian border and into Canada to the west coast, venturing southward in parts of Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and then down along the California coast. They're birds primarily of mature forests, where they can find dead trees in which to forage and hammer out cavities. Look at the chips flying here. Males and females have two slight plumage differences, one more obvious than the other. The most obvious shows in the red crest, with the female wearing a gray forehead, while the male's red reaches the top of his beak. But males also wear a red mustache, while females wear a black mustache. Each member of the pair excavates his or her own roost cavities, new ones each year. The pair also excavate a nest cavity, a new one each year. And they both excavate to feed. Now that's a lot of chiseling. So they need more than a few suitable trees in the territory they maintain year-round. If your neighborhood lacks that kind of habitat, you'll unlikely see pileateds in your yard or neighborhood. When feeding, pileateds often hammer out rectangular holes. Sometimes they're so enthusiastic in their excavation that small trees break off, their tops tumbling to the ground. The deep excavations pileateds make serve to let them reach wood-boring beetles, termites, and other larvae and eggs, and especially their favorite carpenter ants. Their long tongues, typical of most woodpeckers, enable them to better reach the larvae during excavation. Pileated nest cavities, usually excavated primarily by males, occasionally have round openings, but usually rectangular, and they're large, 1 or 2 feet deep, requiring 3 and sometimes as long as 6 weeks to excavate. The result of all that excavation almost always leaves telltale signs of the activity, one of the best ways to find pileated woodpeckers. While the female helps with the finishing touches, the nest has no lining other than maybe a few remaining wood chips. And in that cavity, she lays her 3 to 5 eggs and incubates them for just over 2 weeks. The adults feed the youngsters for about 4 weeks or so before they're ready to fledge. So given 2 to 2.5 months time invested, for chiseling out the nest, for laying the eggs, for incubating, for feeding, 2.5 months, the pileateds put their everything into that one nest, and they raise only a single brood per season. While pileateds rarely reuse a nest, or even a roost site for that matter, the woodpeckers make a significant contribution to the lives of other cavity nesting critters. Critters like owls, ducks, bats, swallows, swifts, none of which can excavate their own cavities. Instead, they readily accept the results of a pileated's work for their own cozy nurseries. But pileateds also spend a surprising amount of time on the ground, especially on and around downed, rotting logs that they excavate, seeking those delicious carpenter ants. In studies about their diet, ants make up anywhere between 40 and 95% of some individuals' diets. Pileateds are also attracted to the base of trees, probably because rot often begins in that part of the plant. So if a tree goes bad in your yard, and if you can do so without causing danger, leave the tree, or at least the snag. Our snag, in our own yard, has hosted every woodpecker known to these parts, including regularly visiting pileateds. Pileateds also feast on berries, including dogwood, that you see here, as well as holly, poison ivy, hackberry, sumac berries, shown here, sassafras, blackberries, and greenbrier. While pileateds seem hesitant to visit some yards, they are known to visit soot feeders, and occasionally they'll sample seeds. On rare, and let me tell you, exciting occasions, adults may bring their young to feeders. And of course, all birds come to water. For birds, though, it's always about habitat, not feeders and feed. No matter the tasty morsels you offer, if the area habitat isn't suitable, the birds won't be there to even look at those morsels. And nothing could be more true of pileated woodpeckers. Fortunately, the pileated woodpecker population has increased steadily since the mid-1960s, and authorities now estimate the population to be about 1.9 million. According to Cornell University's All About Birds website, about 67% of that population is found in the U.S., and 33% is found in Canada. So this snazzy dinosaur, the fireworks with feathers, the real-life woody woodpecker, is certainly a national treasure. Relish the sightings. I hope you've enjoyed this little program about the pileated woodpecker. And if you'd like to learn more about bird watching, I hope you'll consider some of my books, Birds in the Yard Month by Month, How Birds Behave, or Planting Native to Attract Birds to Your Yard, or maybe visit my website, birdsintheyard.com, or join us daily for entries on Facebook about birds and their habitat. Meanwhile, may you always have birds in your binoculars.